And then 2004 rolls around. You decide to get back in the studio and record, and you put out Loco, another top 5 single.
There's always a little party thing going on in there, which is, I guess it kind of got to be my trademark there. Everybody said, well, David Lee's always partying, he's always doing the party rocking songs. And that Loco was just one of those things, it was about partying in the backyard, probably what a lot of people are doing tonight. But that's just what it was. I mean, it's just a party song.
Well, there are worse things you could be known for than the guy who makes party songs all the time. So those 3 hits that you recorded, Dust in the Bottle, Party Crowd, and Loco, were some of the best songs on the radio in the 90s and early 2000s. But when you talk about your writing career, as far as the songs that you wrote for other artists, we don't have time to go through the entire list because it's about a mile long. And at the top of that list seems to be Kenny Chesney. He's the guy that has probably cut more of your songs than anybody else.
Yeah, I love Kenny, man. He's just been a great friend and collaborator, and we've had a good long history of working together. And he recorded Living in Fast Forward. Well, he had recorded a couple of other songs before that, but I think Living in Fast Forward was around like 2005, 2006 era.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of those records that just kind of popped out through there, and it was a fantastic recording. I mean, that we didn't even demo that song. He just went in and recorded it in it, and they did a great job on it. But Kenny's been incredible over the years, and we're great friends, and I owe him a lot.
Yeah, I go back and I look at the list of songs that you had a hand in writing, and just so many of them are probably on my list of favorite songs, Living in Fast Forward being one of them. But you have Live a Little, Till It's Gone, Bar at the End of the World, Pirate Flag, Here and Now, all Kenny songs. And Everything's Gonna Be All Right was a CMA winner for you and Kenny in 2018. So I want you to kind of take me through the making of that song, and then also how Kenny inspired you to go ahead and record your own album after 14 years of strictly just writing for other artists.
Well, just I guess being a songwriter and friend and talking back and forth every now and then. I had sent Kenny some songs, and he was like, "Man, you send these songs, man." He goes, "I love your demos. You ought to be putting these records out. These ought to be going out so people can hear them." And I was a little, kind of, yeah. We just kind of talked and laughed about it. And finally, one time he said, "Hey, man, what do you think if we go in the studio and cut some songs and just see what happens, just put something out there?" And so he produced my album, No Zip Code, and we had a great time picking all the songs out and picking out who we wanted to play in the band, and really just, Kenny just he took a lot of time and effort, which is incredible because he's a busy guy, and but we went in and recorded all those songs, and it just so happened that one of the last songs I wrote again was a song called Everything's Gonna Be All Right. And it just had such a great kind of feeling to it, and we recorded it, and it felt great. And so that ended up being our first single, and Kenny came on and sang with me, and we ended up getting a CMA award and a #1, and it's just been an incredible song for me.
How did it feel to get that recognition, especially that CMA award?
That was unbelievable. It's hard to say, I had never had I'd been nominated for like Best New Artist or whatever back in the day, but I had never won a CMA award or an ACM for that matter. So that was really something, man. That was just amazing. I mean, we just had a blast over that.
What I loved about that song is that, everybody my age and older remembered you from, Dust in the Bottle, Party Crowd, and everything like that. But then the younger audience, they might not have remembered you from then, but now they get introduced to David Lee Murphy. So you introduced a whole new generation to your music. And I absolutely love that, because if they wouldn't have gotten that, they'd have been missing out.
Well, you know, what's really cool nowadays is there's so much music available, and thank God you guys play the records, you know, and you know, keep that music alive, because I still listen to like all my favorites. I mean, I've you know, I got Haggard and Waylon and Willie and Hank Jr. and all those guys, Ed Bruce. I mean, just so many of them that I'm a fan of those guys, and I still listen to those, plus the new stuff too. So I appreciate you guys playing them and keeping that music out there.
We're going to keep doing it too. You talked about all those older guys who you grew up listening to. Is Haggard your number one influence, or who would you say was?
Waylon, probably.
Waylon?
Waylon was a big one for me. I mean, I loved Waylon. We got to be really good friends in the late 90s. And I got really kind of close to Waylon, but I loved Willie and loved Hank Jr. I loved Merle. All those guys, man. Johnny Paycheck, Charlie Rich. I loved Skinner, too. I mean, Leonard Skinner was like my favorite band of all time. People go, you know, they talk about their favorite bands, and like, well, mine was Leonard Skinner.
Yeah.
So I had all those influences. And then when I came to town, I was really involved with Charlie Daniels. He was like one of the first people that his organization kind of took me under their wing. So I was kind of involved with that whole Southern country rock thing before I got, you know, involved with, you know, more than Nashville. But Waylon, Round the Tree, a lot of times it was my favorite.
And this being a mainly 90s show, who else from the 90s did you enjoy working with or listening to? We talked about Kenny. Obviously, he was big in the 90s as he is today. But who else from the 90s did you enjoy?
Well, I mean, I've got so many friends. Brooks and Dunn was one of my favorites. I mean, I toured with them for a whole year. I think we played there in Kate together maybe one year.
Huh.
Leroy Parnell's been a great friend of mine for years, and Daryl Worley's another one I've been really good friends with. I mean, lately this past year I've been doing some shows with Joe Diffie and Mark Chestnut, and we had a blast being together out there on the road. And of course, Joe passed away this year, and that was really tough for all of us. But I mean, so many of those guys that I had worked with and done shows with, and guys that were a little bit in front of me, like Clint Black and Garth and all those guys, always loved them too. So, I mean, I know I'm forgetting somebody, but I was a fan of all those guys.
Yeah, it's always a tough question because you don't want to leave anybody out, but definitely.
I'm friends with all of them,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know I've forgotten a bunch of people, but there's, you know, this is a small town, and yeah, we all love the music, so.
You've probably written songs for most of them, too.
But yeah, written with a bunch of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, a couple of songs that you've written are actually in the top 10 of the chart right now, like as we speak. Kenny's latest #1 single, Here and Now, that topped the charts not too long ago, and Justin Moore's Why We Drink is probably going to top the charts here pretty soon, too. That's got to feel pretty good.
That's crazy. I mean, it is crazy. We wrote Here and Now back in October. We were out in California. I was out in Malibu, and me and Craig Wiseman and David Garcia, and we went out there to actually write with Kenny, and we wrote the song one day, and Kenny wasn't there, so we wrote the song anyway, and it ended up being the single that they did, which was we all just went crazy over that song. I mean, it just felt so good, and it was so fun to write that song. And when you hear it on the radio, I mean, it just sounds like fun. But that was a blessing. And then Justin Moore, who I've been friends with forever since probably his first single, who's a great guy. I've gone out on the road with him to write. I've, ridden on his bus and gone places, and we've done shows together, and I've gotten up and sang with him. But we were down in Florida a couple years ago, and we wrote Why We Drink. And we just had, we laughed the whole time we were writing the song. You listen to the lyrics, and you can tell we were having fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a blast to write, and it's like one of those tonight kind of songs. It's a party song.
Yeah, when I heard that you wrote on those two songs, I can't say I was surprised a bit.
Thank you.
David Lee Murphy, his latest project is called No Zip Code. That's the album we were just talking about back from a couple years ago that Kenny Chesney got him back going. I encourage you to check that out now if you haven't already. David, is there anything else you'd like to add to your fans here in Southeast Missouri, Southern Illinois, Western Kentucky before we let you go?
I love you all. Thanks so much for listening, and keep listening to us and keep following us, and hope to see you soon.